At 105, they hit the IRS, and they kick it off with Tony Ortega. There was 2,400 lawsuits, not only against the IRS, but against individual IRS employees. Okay. And so the impression you get was that this was for harassment purposes, because we're doing that to hit the pocketbooks of the individuals, right? No. Federal law dictates the way you have to plead your suit in the types of lawsuits that were dealt with, Freedom of Information Act, etc., Privacy Act, etc. Under certain statutes, you must name the agent individually. That doesn't mean the guy has to go off and defend a lawsuit. He's defended by the government lawyers, okay? But he makes it, and his tonality is that they would, not only 2,400, but against individual IRS, like it's something, like it's an important distinction. It's no distinction. It's a distinction with no difference. It's dictated by statute. It's meaningless, and it doesn't create any other further inconvenience or expense for the individual who gets named. Lawrence Wright at 109.20 says, this all leads to the question, how do you define religion, right? And he says, which, you know, it's a total non sequitur because it's not even an issue in the exemption. That issue has been dealt with for 20 years by the courts, okay? And Lawrence Wright says this, the only organization entitled to make those distinctions is the IRS. Lie, okay? Any agency, anywhere, state, federal, local, has to make that distinction all the time. It's not just taxation. There's labor laws, there's ordinances in cities, it's a common through the woof and warp of government from the lowest level to the highest federal level. The IRS doesn't have some special mandate from Congress that says you are the determiner of religion. That's what Larry Wright just said here. And it's just an invention. It's a lie. He goes on. It's an agency very poorly equipped to do that. I mean, they are mainly accountants and lawyers. They're not theologians, right? I just note an irony. Nor is Lawrence Wright a theologian, right? But he can riff all he wants to, and he can set the anti-Scientology narrative and the accepted narrative in the public's mind as to a religion in America. But they can't, and they're not equipped to make that determination. Just as a side note, but he goes on. But it's the only opinion that matters. Talking about the IRS. Untrue. The IRS's opinion has not mattered since 1967 when they lost in federal court in the Hawaii Church's tax case, and there's been one precedent, an accumulating number of precedents from that federal district court to federal appellate courts to the United States Supreme Court to Supreme Courts in many lands that have made that question moot. It's decided. You guys, they're like the regressives. You know, they want to roll us back to 1950. That's what he's trying to do here. It's done. You can't do it. You can't get the toothpaste back in the tube. Their opinion is meaningless now on the question of whether something is a religion or not, or whether Scientology is a religion or not. It's meaningless. It's res judicata. It's already been decided. And then he goes on. Once the IRS has decided that you are a religion, then you are protected by the vast protections of the First Amendment. False. False. But he's sitting here talking like it's just really educated. He's taking us to school because he's the expert and he knows it. Everything he's saying here is just absolutely false. And he knows it's false because I spent hours going through this with him and showing him and citing the decisions I'm talking about. All right. And so with that profundity, they followed up with Alex Gibney saying at 1:10:30, the war ended between IRS and Scientology. He says the war ended because the IRS surrendered. Like they literally got in their bunker and they waved a white flag. Okay, and I've been through this. I went through for days and gave Wright, just tomes of material and specific facts and the whole timeline to show that this was utter and complete horse shit. I went through this for several days and hours and gave him tons of material to show him that these conclusions here are garbage.